Welcome back. Now, today, oh God, I must get some hair product. Sorry, I so often come on here and look like a bush pig. I'm really sorry, guys. I have to get to my hairdresser. My hairdresser is Betty from Baghdad. Now, I love Betty, and as a sociologist, I find it absolutely fascinating whenever I go to have the ancient grey hair dyed or a haircut. We have wonderful conversations, particularly about the Middle East. So, today, the eternal and ongoing question, what will bring Trump undone? I think one of the main ingredients for bringing this man down is, because he's already brought himself down, the problem is actually no longer Trump. The problem is the Republican Party not standing up for Trump. I just thought about that then. That's the real problem, right? So what will actually bring the GOP around, if you like, is the economy. When the economy starts to take a nosedive. Unfortunately for people caught up in it, you shouldn't have to see an economic downward spiral to just get people to do the right thing. It's just, rubbish. Why are we dealing with this rubbish? However, it's part of a bigger picture. Okay, so on the world stage, you'd have to say capitalism is in crisis. But also 2 days ago, the EU and Japan have signed the biggest trade deal ever. Okay, now they were, people do understand that these elaborate international deals usually take years and years and years to negotiate, and they'd been pussyfooting around the edges, for a long time, at least a couple of years. But they speeded it up and they've signed it, and they're going to work out the fine print later. Why does this matter, viewers? Well, it matters because this involves a third of the world's GDP. I didn't realise it was so huge. Oh my God. Okay, so it's immense. And this is a middle finger to Brexit. So it's cutting the UK out of the loop. They voted, voter rigging or not, they voted, however, very narrowly. So I feel sorry for all the sane and sentient Brits who didn't want to have Brexit. They're stuck with it. So that spectacularly vile manoeuvre, lest we forget Cambridge Analytica's role in it, so it was marginalising the UK, and it's a big middle finger, or in fact 2 middle fingers, to the US. It is huge. So let's look what's happening with that trade pact, and then we'll move on to the US economy, because nothing's going to really move the sentiment of Republicans until something happens there. So just a quick one, first of all, on the EU and Japan trade deal. Oh. I don't count them if more than one falls out. Oh, and one did. Okay. All right. Oh, and interesting because it's about money. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I'm starting to get these reversals. It's really weird. So, on top we have the 7 of Pentacles, the harvest. So, wondering, as a nation we're talking here, whether it's Japan or whether it's a combined pack of many countries like the EU, looking at the harvest. Have we got enough, and what we need to do from here? Being at a crossroads and having to make a decision, which is what they've done, this is the recent past, in order to shore up the wealth, because the EU's under pressure, and the Japanese economy that was gigantic in the 80s and 90s is slowing down, so they're doing it for their own reasons. At a crossroads, recent past, decided to go there. They got the chariot, which is moving forward at pace, which was that vote, but it's reversed. So you'd have to say, now they've actually engineered and announced this immense trade deal, it's going to slow down from here. The fine print is much more complicated to deliver. The celebration card, upside down, meaning it's too early to celebrate. They can't celebrate yet. They've done this for political reasons as well as economic reasons, because they've really wanted to rattle the cage. They're doing this, I think, not to be bastards, but because they actually care on some level about the world. They understand we are now a globalised world, and if big parts of the world fall away and aren't available, it's not good for anybody. So when I say I think they're doing it because they care about the world, they care about the world in terms of keeping the world economy buoyant and looking after and feathering their own nests while they do it, which is fair enough. It's certainly a more altruistic point of view or inclusive point of view than something as naive and stupid as America First in 2018. But speaking of America First, let's look at the US economy. We have to keep looking at it because things are changing. Also, the Reserve Bank, I think that's what you call it in the US. We have the Reserve Bank, the main government sort of thing. Federal Reserve, it just came to me. Your Federal Reserve, those of you in America, has been saying for 2 years under Sally Yates and others, we can't keep these phenomenally low, artificially low rates. The rates are going up. A year ago, they said, don't forget, just letting you all know, the rates are going up. Now, I don't understand high economics, but if they let them stay low, apparently that causes inflation. So Donald, of course, doesn't understand this. He just wants zero rates forever. Just give me money, give me money. So he hasn't got a clue, can't read a balance sheet. So having said the rates are going to go up, the rates are going to go up, they're putting the rates up. And big business, corporate business, have had long enough in Disneyland, time for them to wake up, time for them to stand up. So let's look at the US economy. Where are we? End of July through to the end of the year. Let's look at the US economy. Let's have a look. Oh, happy days. Looking backwards, then the Page of Pentacles. It'll be all right, it'll be all right. The bearer of news about money. I tend to think this is still the stock market in terms of reassuring each other. It's all right, it's all right. Okay, and then the Mercenary, and then the Fred Flintstone Club. All right, so in the most general terms, they're relying on the fact that it was better in the past and they've weathered the storm of 2008 and rich people are still rich, so that's awesome. and they're banking on that. Obviously, their memories don't go back to 1929 because 2008 was dreadful and confronting for the financial world, but it wasn't as, let's say, as politically potent as 29. So whether people were jumping out of windows in 1929 or not, that could be a national myth. But America chooses not to really look at that. Obama did a really good job with 2008, but for many people, they lost their homes. And who bought their homes? That would be your treasurer, Steve Mnuchin, and other absolute reptiles that are now in government who bought up people's homes. I mean, is there a lower act? Is there a lower act, viewers? I ask you. Okay, so they're looking back, but they're not looking back far enough. The news, they're still, as I said, talking it up. They haven't run out of cocaine yet, so that's awesome. So they're mercenaries. They don't care about the social implications of what they do or what they fail to do. They are just in it. They can be bought and sold. As people, they can be bought and sold, and that includes the Republicans. Then an ace, energy, so wands, fire, they think they're just going to club their way through. So I'm going to pull some more cards on this. Oh. All right, they're not going to get away with it all in the sense. Okay, so this is true of any financial ups and downs or any financial crises. Those who come from old money sit and wait, and they buy up blue stock companies cheaply in a crisis and make even more money. So it tends to be normal people who suffer, and those rogue traders, when the coke does run out, who have overextended themselves. The people with old money, intergenerational money, tend to solidify. The sun is shining on these people. So it's shining in the sense of, with the argy-bargy of modern economics, just as we've all become much more engaged with politics, we are going to become much more engaged with the economy. And this idea, it's going to be more exposed, thanks to Bernie Sanders and the other bright young things coming through in Bernie's wake, to actually talk about capitalism in those terms. For most of us, we're brought up in first world countries where capitalism's never questioned. It's just how you do money. But it is just one model of doing money. And that the money all goes in the pyramid to the 1% is not going to be tolerated on the other side of this whole economic experience. So what I predict generally is going to happen is the interest rates are going to have an impact. The stock market will wobble. I've said this before, particularly in October. Wobble, wobble, wobble. But it's not until next year that all of Trump's tariffs and things are starting to filter through and really impact, and then be very careful what you decide to do with your money in 2019. So start thinking about it now. You might not be a financial person, you might not have much money, but please be careful with it. So I think that's what we're seeing now. The tariffs are an economic disaster, but they're also a political disaster for Trump once the obvious things kick in. This might seem trivial, viewers, but I think we're still only beginning to see the repercussions of other decisions, like cutting down on the guest worker program. And apparently the shrimp industry is losing $1 million a day because they can't hire guest workers from Mexico or Guatemala or wherever they got them from. So we're going to see this come through the agricultural sector in particular. And given that statistically most people live in cities, it's sort of abstracted. We don't notice, but we will notice when either we can't get the particular products that we want or have to pay 4 times as much for them. Exactly the same in Australia. You cannot get Anglo-Australians to work for the sort of money that is paid to these people. Okay, so none of that was an epic revelation, but we have to keep an eye on the economy for exactly the reason I was saying at the beginning. It's not till it affects Republicans down home in their electorates and in their pockets that they start to grow a spine. Oh, disgusting. They are so disgusting, viewers. All right, keep the comments flowing, please. Love that. Thumbs up. Be back soon.